Hi, this is Rebecca Miskin from Night Owl, and you are listening to the Three Geeks Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Three Geeks Podcast. It's Jason and John here with another fun conversation. Today, we're joined by Barry Papick, which is you're probably one of the interviews I've looked forward to the most.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I always say, being a character actor and an acting coach, you're always that guy that everybody bumps into and says, aren't you friends with my brother-in-law?
Well,
because they've seen me on camera 100 times, but they never can put it two and two together.
Yeah, Barry is an actor, writer, and acting coach, and we're going to get into all of that. But Barry, you're in my favorite film of all time. You're actually in the movie. It's like my test when I go on a date. Like, they have to be able to tolerate this movie because I watch it so much that if they can't, then it's not going to work, which is Private Parts.
I was going to say it has to be Private Parts. It's amazing, with everything that I've done, that's still the thing that I get recognized for the most. And I'll be walking down the street and people will come up to me and say, weren't you in Private Parts?
Yes, because, but you're the most recognizable because you get put through so much crap. You're like the guy in the middle. You get yelled at by Fred. You get yelled at by Howard. You get yelled at by Pig Vomit.
Yeah, everybody picks on me for sure. I agree.
What was that like filming and meeting all those guys?
Well, it was fantastic. Paul, it was really, he hadn't really worked before. And his father was commissioner of baseball at the time. So his father was much more famous than he was. Howard was fantastic. And, really, most of the time I was working, I was the only actor. So, it was really nice. They all gave me a lot of respect.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It's a small role, but it's a great role.
Well, I'm in about 20 minutes of the movie. And, we shot for about 3 months. So, it seems small, but it's really not that small.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Did you, was there a lot of like bits that got recorded in the radio scenes that got cut out?
Yeah, I was really lucky because, originally I was hired for 2 weeks and then Ivan Reitman really liked me. So I ended up working for 3 months. So it was just, the whole thing was a lot of fun and it was really fantastic.
Were you a fan of his prior to being in the movie?
I wouldn't say I was a fan of his. I listened occasionally and, I really learned to like him a lot and we had a really good time. And, I got to be good friends with Jackie and good friends with Fred. So, the whole thing was, it was really great. And Howard is just, he's a mensch, he's a lot different off the air than he is on the air.
Yeah, absolutely. Fred is my favorite person on that show. That man is a genius with sound effects.
Fred and I became good friends. And what we found out, which was funny, was that I had met his wife about a year before I met him.
How nice. His wife's Allison. Right?
Allison was an actress, and she came to me for coaching, and through a mutual friend of ours. So he came back and he said to her, "Listen, hon, I have somebody that you have to work with," and he gives her my card, and she said, "I met this guy about a year ago."
Well, I'm going to jump in, Barry, because while doing some research, I see that you have a connection to one of my favorites. I read where you have a connection to The Wire. which I think is the greatest cop show that's ever existed. So could you tell me and the listeners a little bit about that connection?
Oh, absolutely. I coach Sonia Sohn. I still do to this day. As far as I'm concerned, Sonia should have won an Emmy for The Wire, but it was so, nobody really watched it when it was on. It's done so much better in, in syndication and since in reruns. So, I've been coaching Sonia for 20 some odd years now. And, she's amazing. And she was amazing on the show.
Yes, I remember I had to actually, when I was watching The Wire, just as a side note, when she had and I don't want to ruin it for everybody, when there was that moment, I think in season one, where you weren't sure what happened to her when she got attacked, I was like, I had to go somewhere. I was going to be gone for a couple of days away from the house, and I could not wait, Barry, to get home. I'm like, I got to get home and find out what happened. I got to go home and find out what happened. I could not wait. It's a great show.
And Sonia is such a wonderful actress. Since then, she starred on a show called Utopia last year with John Cusack. And she also was in Body of Proof and Star Trek. So, she's done so much work. And The Chi, so it's always fun working with her.
Cool.
Yeah, you're in what I think is maybe number 2 best cop show of all time, which was NYPD Blue.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I was directed by one of the guys from, what was the show that was on right before that, Bochco's show? I forget, but it was Hill Street Blues.
Oh,
So I've been directed by 2 of the people from Hill Street Blues, because Betty Thomas directed Private Parts. And when I did, I think the first season of NYPD Blue. So I worked with Caruso and Dennis Francis. Dennis Francis is one of the really great guys, really, really nice guy. So working with Dennis was just fantastic. And that whole, I ran into Bochco years later, and, he looked at me and he said, Barry Papick, and, he remembered my name and remembered.
Season 5 or 6 right now, but that show's so ahead of its time. The stuff that it's dealing with,
fantastic.
It is.
As was Hill Street Blues. Bochco was ahead of his time. He was really great.
Like when they said they were going to reboot NYPD Blue a few years ago, I'm like, this show totally fits now. Like, it would be a great show to have on right now.
Oh, I agree. And the one thing that they did really right was casting. They were just fantastic. Dennis Francis was, he was just a genius on that show.
Yeah, he seems like such a nice guy, and he plays at the beginning of the series, he plays a gruff, kind of grumpy guy, mildly racist.
Exactly. And Dennis is just the antithesis of that. And you're right, he's just a wonderful guy. Working with Dennis was fantastic.
So Barry, how did you transition from, you start off as an actor, and then you decided to kind of start doing some coaching and still acting on as well. But what was the catalyst for you going, I think I would like to coach some folks?
Well, it's interesting. It wasn't by choice. It was, I went screaming into coaching, but, and I still act. I think Thomas Churchill was on your show, and I've done 4 of Thomas's movies. And, so I still make my living as an actor. I guess start on Without a Trace last year, and The Riches, and, a whole bunch of stuff. So I was walking down the block one day, and I ran into a woman. I was in New York City, and I ran into a woman named Susan Cohen. And Susan taught at Strasberg, and she was opening a new school with John Strasberg. And she said to me, would you like to, come and teach? And I said, no. And she said, just come and teach, a Saturday class and see if you like it. And I did, and it was great. And then I met Gus Van Sant at a party. And Gus said, I'm doing this movie called Finding Forrester. And I have this actor who has never worked before, but I think he's great. would you come and talk to him? And I was in LA, and I flew to New York, and I met with Rob Brown, and it started a relationship that even to this day I coach Rob, and he's amazing. He's been on Blind Spot for the last 7 years, and then he was on Treme for 3 years before that. So I started coaching for Gus, and then they asked me to be the on-set coach for that movie, Finding Forrester. So I ended up as the on-set coach, so and working all 5 months, I think it was, and and that's pretty much how it how it happened. After that, I was coaching Lindsay Lohan and on Labor Pains, and they also asked me to be in the movie, and Lou Kirby, who is wonderful. And then I was doing The Express, which was the Ernie Davis story. And again, I was supposed to coach Rob, and they asked me to stay on to coach everybody else in the movie also. So, it's always been word of mouth. I've never advertised my coaching or my teaching, but it's always been word of mouth. And then when I got to LA, I started a class out here, and I have about 20 people in my class. So, between acting and coaching and teaching, it's been busy, and I've been very lucky.
May I ask a follow-up to the coaching question?
Sure.
So when somebody gets you as a coach, do you have particular specialties that you work on with them, or, for lack of a better term, with all due respect, you're kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to acting?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I always say I can make a good actor great, and a great actor an Oscar winner. And I have coached a couple Oscar winners. We won an Oscar for Ray, and I coached Alec Baldwin on Broadway. Basically, my work just makes you more truthful. That's all. The key to my work is to make actors as truthful as they can possibly be, by connecting, to their own lives, and really, working from their own truth.
Okay.
It's always a challenge, and again, all actors have different personalities, and all directors have different personalities. So the key to what I do is making sure that you feel out each actor that you're working with. I coach Sean Connery. Sean is amazing. It was amazing, and so you just had to step back and just give him some suggestions. Dennis Quaid, the same thing. I love Dennis, and Dennis is incredibly talented. F. Murray Abraham, all people that I've worked with that were just so talented. Just give them a different way. Actors love a different way to look at something. Everybody says, don't actors have a big personality? They don't want to be coached. I've never met an actor who doesn't want to be coached.
Okay.
Fascinating. And you worked with the RZA too, right? What movie did you work with him on?
No, I've worked with RZA for years, and RZA is incredibly talented. And the thing that RZA is incredibly smart also. And the thing about RZA is that he understands that there are hundreds of thousands of kids who follow every word that he says, and he understands the responsibility of that. And I just, I think he's great, and I just think he's incredibly intelligent. So it's always a lot of fun to work with Riz.
Yeah, he is a master class at scoring films.
Absolutely. He did Kill Bill and Kill Bill 2.
Mm-hmm.
And, plus he's been directing a lot lately also. So, he's really a jack of all trade. He did a year on Entourage. He's a wonderful actor, but, he's just music. Just comes so naturally to him. He's so amazing.
What do you like to do the most? You do voiceover, you do acting and coaching. Like, which one do you enjoy doing the most?
I love them all. Voiceover is fantastic because, you just go in your shorts, and nobody, I did a GNC campaign where we did a commercial and we did 7 commercials. They played over 10,000 times, and it was a great campaign. And we did it all in an hour and a half, and in my shorts, and it was a lot of fun. I think I'll always be an actor first. This weekend I did a radio play called Woodman, which was a blast to do, written by a guy named Gareth Williams, who was in Naked Angels in New York, one of the biggest theater companies in New York. So, all of those things are great, but I'll always be an actor first.
Well, actually, Jason beat me to the punch. I was going to ask about your writing, because you've written a stage play called Ruby's Arms. You've done a few other screenplays and whatnot. So I was going to ask how writing fits into that love of either coaching or acting or whatnot. So let's maybe go a different way. With writing, how do you approach the writing process when you sit down to write a script, if you don't mind
No, I don't mind at all. It's definitely inspiration, because, I know writers who, work 8 hours a day and, sit in front of their computers and make sure that they pound something. But with me, it's always inspiration, like Ruby's Arms. It took me about 6 or 7 years to write. We've done readings of it. We're talking about putting up a production of it. And it's 30 monologues connected by 10 songs and dialogue. So, it was always just inspiration. I wrote a short film, which I shot, called Breakable. And it's about early stage dementia. And it all just started one day when I was having lunch with my sister, and she said, it was funny, I was out to lunch with a bunch of women last week, and I ordered a coffee, and they all laughed because they said I had already ordered the coffee. And I said, does that happen often to you? And she said, no. And but I got scared, so I sat down and I wrote Breakable, about a brother and sister and dementia. Each thing is just, for me, is always a matter of inspiration. I wrote a pilot, which I love, called Pearl. And, I wrote Pearl. It's hopefully very funny because my parents had told me that everything I was writing was really dark. So I decided that I better write something a little bit lighter. And so I sat down and I wrote this mockumentary, Pearl, which is a pilot, and then I wrote 7 episodes. So I did that only because I wanted to write something funny.
You've really done it all, because you were also in a video game. What is that? What is that process like?
It's fantastic. I played 5 characters, and in Bloodsport, which is 50 Cent's video game. And the first day out, it sold 2 million copies.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, our contract doesn't call for residuals on video games, because that would have been incredibly beautiful. But I had so much fun. I played an Irish biker and an Italian doorman, and it was just a blast. And the director, they just tell you what lines they want you to read and who they want you to be. And, we were in, the studio for like 8 hours, and it was a lot of fun. I had a blast doing that.
Well, you mentioned the word inspiration when you were talking about writing. Who were some of the people that inspired you when you got into acting?
Well, it's certainly Marlon Brando. Because, we work a lot alike, and, I just loved watching Brando. And Al Pacino. And then, I was really lucky because I got to work with Pacino. And, we did a movie called Simone together. Mm-hmm. And, everybody says, the difference between Sean Connery is you do 3 takes and then you move on. With Al, you do like 60 takes. And everybody said to me, aren't you bored, doing 60 takes? And I said, I'm doing 60 takes with Al Pacino. If you're bored doing that, then you should be doing something else.
So what do you like to do when you're not busy working, Barry?
I love watching movies.
Okay.
I've played basketball my whole life. I've been athletic my whole life. When I'm not working, I'm usually thinking about work. Usually I'm just watching some television, watching movies. I watch all too many game shows, and then I'm either writing or working or acting and memorizing. And like I said, I just finished a movie called Amityville Rising with Thomas Churchill, and it was a chunk. So learning it was, I'm not as young as I used to be. I was on a TV series for a long time called Swan's Crossing, and it was like second nature learning, memorizing. It's not second nature anymore.
Well, Father Time waits on no one, and he's a pistol to deal with, isn't he?
Unfortunately, that's true.
What's the most recent movie you saw?
What is the most recent movie I saw? Well, I just saw The Prom.
Okay.
Which I thought was fantastic. Meryl Streep, Alexa Fogel, who's a friend of mine in New York, was the casting director on that movie. So it was really fun to watch. I just binged on Schitt's Creek and watched the 6 seasons of that. Of course, like most everybody else did during this pandemic. And occasionally I'll catch a movie of mine on the air. I just watched the last thing I went to live. I went with Thomas Churchill, actually. We went to see Godfather Part 2, the 40th anniversary. And it was so amazing because I've seen it so many times, but to see it on the big screen and to see De Niro so young, it was fantastic. It was really fantastic. And then I saw I forget, The Departed, not The Departed. What was the name of the movie with Pacino and De Niro that just came out, the Scorsese film?
Irishman.
Oh, it was just wonderful to watch. And, to watch those guys working together is always amazing. And, Pesci, I love Pesci. So it was really a lot of fun.
Oh, me too, man. Seeing Pesci back, I'm glad that they kept asking him. They asked him like 60 or 70 times, but I'm glad they kept going back and just wore him down.
I don't think Pesci really wants to work anymore. I remember when we were both younger, and he's much older than I am, but we all used to hang out at this place called Columbus in New York City, and so I used to see Joe there all the time, and Paulie Savino, and everybody used to hang out there. So one night I'm standing there. It must be about 3 a.m. The place is empty, and I'm with my friend David Harvey, and we're standing there. And who walks in but David Bowie and Mick Jagger? So basically, it was just the 4 of us in this big restaurant at the bar. It was phenomenal, and it was pre-cell phone, so I couldn't call everybody. I wanted to call everybody.
A simpler time.
If it was these days, I would have ran down to the bathroom and just called the whole world. But but back then you couldn't do that. But just hanging out with, we ended up talking to Bowie and talking to Jagger, and they were just fantastic.
Do you have a favorite movie? One that you can just, when it's on, you can just stop everything you're doing and watch it?
Well, certainly The Godfather. Tootsie is like that also. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Schindler's List. Those are the things that really come to mind. Midnight Cowboy. Those movies. I could watch The Godfather 1,000 times. It's like the perfect movie, and you watch those guys act, and I mean it's just phenomenal. One after the other, James Caan and Duvall and Pacino. It's just amazing. And then Godfather 2, just to watch, De Niro, it's just amazing. And, so I could watch, if I know The Godfather's on, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah,
So,
my most recent movie I saw was The Graduate.
Oh, what a great film. I love
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman. He's one of the few people that I've never met, I've never worked with. And I could watch everything that he does. He's just tremendous. Um, I really enjoy him. He reminds me, Richard Dreyfuss is a lot like he is. I love watching Dreyfuss because even though Dreyfuss can eat the scenery all the time, you sit there and you watch him and you always believe him. You believe everything he ever does. There's a movie called Once Around that Dreyfuss did. And I mean, he's just all over the place. It's just huge. And there's not a moment that you don't believe.
So I was going to ask Barry as my last question. If you could give a inspiring actor or actress one piece of free advice, what would you give them? What would you say?
Tell your truth. Always find your truth. And that's the biggest problem with most actors is that they just don't know what their truth is. So, that's where I come in and I can help them discover. But, go deep inside yourself. The only truth is your own. I work a lot on Tennessee Williams stuff, and it's the most beautiful stuff in the world. I mean, the writing is almost perfect, but that was Tennessee Williams' point of view. In order to play that, I have to play Barry Papick's point of view, and the only way I can do that is to really deeply find myself, and then place myself in that work. Glass Menagerie, Streetcar. All of those things, I can't play them unless I know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So where can everybody find you online, Barry?
Well, I'm at bpapick@aol.com or bpapick on Facebook. And, my number is 818-590-3999. And I invite everybody to call and come work with me. I've been doing all one-on-ones online these days because of the pandemic. We can't go into our studio. So we've been doing everything online. And like I said, I've been working with about, 15, 20 people online. And it's been fantastic because what it does is it gives everybody a little bit more of a private touch, a personal touch.
Awesome. I'll put the links to all of Barry's stuff in the description of this video and this audio. It's been an honor and a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you.
It's been so much fun. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barry. We appreciate it.
Anytime you want to talk about film, man, just hit me up because I love all things movies. Me
too. It's interesting because my favorite movies are all like, from the 50s and the 60s, Stalag 17. And I mean, that stuff is the stuff, that you could just, I just love watching that stuff. Shelley Winters was a good friend of mine. I could watch Shelley do anything, because she was such a genius. Elizabeth Taylor, Monty Clift, those are the guys, just phenomenal. I agree. I've recently gone back. Like I said, I watched The Graduate. I've introduced myself to Abbott and Costello. I've been watching a lot of their comedies. Charlie Chaplin is somebody that I've fallen in love with. And a great songwriter also. That man can deliver emotion without even a word coming out of his mouth. It's incredible. Phenomenal. But watch the early, Jack Lemmon in Days of Wine and Roses. That's the kind of stuff, read the Paddy Chayefsky stuff, and the Paddy Chayefsky movies were just phenomenal. Up the Down Staircase, early 60s. Yeah. It was interesting. About 4 or 5 years ago, UCLA had a retrospective on 50s and 60s movies. And I bought 2 tickets to all of them. And I tried to drag people along. And pretty much I went alone to most of them. But Days of Wine and Roses, I brought my manager, I brought a model and another actor, a good friend of mine. And it was just fantastic to watch because, watching Jack Lemmon, here's a guy who did comedy so incredibly well because he did drama so incredibly well. And, you know, you watch Glenn Ross.
Yes.
He's genius in Glenn Ross. And, you know, Pacino's great. Alan Arkin's great. Alec Baldwin, who's a close friend of mine, you know, he has his best 10 minutes of film, you know, in Glenn Ross. But Jack Lemmon he just tears your heart out in that movie. And in Days of Wine and Roses, the last scene in Days of Wine and Roses, you know, Jack Lemmon won an Oscar for that. And Lee Remick was in it also, and she was nominated for an Oscar. And it's brilliant. And the last scene, if you could sit through that last scene and not have tears in your eyes, then you're a better man than I am.
Yeah, I know. Jack Lemmon is one of my favorite actors. I watched The Apartment recently, and I absolutely love that. And I just watched 12 Angry Men, and because Jack Lemmon is in the remake, I want to watch the remake.
Wasn't Henry Fonda in the original?
Yeah.
Yeah, really brilliant. I saw Grapes of Wrath on Broadway. Steppenwolf did it, and it was phenomenal. You know, I went to see Linda Vista recently, which another Steppenwolf play, and it was just so good. I mean, you know, if you go through Chicago, I was doing the movie The Express in Chicago, and I went over to see. They were doing The Diary of Anne Frank. You know, you can't stop in Chicago and not go see a Steppenwolf production.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Barry. And again, I will have the links to all of Barry's stuff in the description of this video and audio. And from John and myself, everybody have a great day.